Doodlebud here. This pen just came in the door and inspired me to do a video I get asked on a fair amount of the time is how do I go about finding older pens. So here we have, it's not super vintage, but this is from late 80s or early 90s. This is a Pelikan M400 brown tortoise. So it has tortoiseshell in the body, looks quite beautiful. Has an oblique nib, which looks quite nice. And this just came in. I opened the box, I looked at it, made sure everything looked okay. I haven't done anything else with it. So I'm gonna inspect it. And as I do that, just talk a little bit about some of the things I do to find little cool pens like this. So this is the store that I bought the pen from. It was on eBay. I will leave a link down there in the description. The store is in Germany. They had a bunch of pens. And tip number one is take your time. I was looking at pens like this, not even this exact one, but multiple Pelikan pens for quite some time. I had a few different ideas for model numbers. I wanted to pick up a Pelikan 100N. The price points for something nice that I didn't have to do a ton of work on. I've never worked on those. It was quite high. It was way outside of what I was expecting. So I readjusted. And then I thought about an M400, but I wanted a little bit of an older one, not a new one. And so I sort of settled in on the 80s era to early 90s. This pen was listed as an M400 80s, but the more you go into it and start reading a little bit, that's sort of the fun part with the whole process, is a little bit of research, read a few things. So thank you to all the people, whoever you are, when you do sites for Schaefer or Pelikan or Parker or Mont Blanc, whatever it is, to help us enthusiasts, help identify pens. So thank you for everyone who does that type of stuff. And so this one comes up, and it's a little bit interesting because it seems we have a bit of a mix. So in like 1990, Germany went from East and West Germany to Germany. So typically on the Pelikan pens, you would also see this sometimes on Mont Blanc pens. I have a W Germany in my cap band. This one here doesn't have the W, it just says Germany. So for this particular model, it started in 84, if memory serving me right. I'll leave a link down below for the site I was referencing, and went up until 1996 until they made some significant changes. So if you had a band like this pen should be from the 90s. However, if I uncap it, we're missing trim rings here and also back here on the piston. So they said that the bodies from the 80s didn't have those rings, and they're thought that the nibs are a little bit more superior to the 1990s ones. So my best guess, again, correct me if I'm wrong, all the Pelikan fans watching this, please leave your information down there, enlighten me. I think we have possibly a 1990s cap with a 1980s body, which is kind of cool. I'm fine with that, doesn't bother me at all. So tortoiseshell, that's the brown tortoise. At this time, I believe was still real tortoiseshell they're using. I'm sort of happy they're not doing that today, but it does look nice. So I wanted a real one, and you have to go vintage for that. And then here is a look at the nib. It's a 14 karat gold broad nib. This is actually the closest I'm looking at it right now. I didn't really inspect this too much. I just checked it out. Looks like it's in good condition. The pen overall looks quite nice. Piston filler. We'll be able to see the ink level that's in there. So what I'm going to do now is zoom out. And then I'm going to start looking at this, and I'll take you along. We're going to inspect it, see how the pen is. I want to make sure everything's functioning well before I go ahead and ink it, so there's no problems. It's easier to deal with stuff when the pen is nice and clean. And yeah, let's give this thing a crack. So checking out the nib and the feed, we can see a little bit of ink residue, a little bit of sheen left on there. So I'm probably going to give this a quick cleaning as well. I'll put on the magnification. The nib looks like it's fairly close, but I'll go under magnification just to see. I'm going to check for the nib and feed alignment. Seems like it's relatively close. I also want to just feel this as well. Yeah, that threads in and out quite nice. Just inspect things, make sure there's no goo in the feed or anything at all. Everything looks quite good. Typically with these pens, I want to check the piston right away, see how well it is. So this is my first turn of the piston, and that's really tight. Yeah, actually, I don't want to go any further. Let me pull that back. I'm going to put a little bit of grease in that barrel. This is just, it's way too tight. I had a look down in the barrel off camera there. To get you the lighting is going to be impossible, but everything looks good down in the barrel. Don't want that to fall off the desk and crack. And I'm just going to put a little touch of the old Twisby grease on here. This bottle actually, it's close to empty, I think. Okay, so just have a teeny little bit on there. That's actually probably a little bit too much, but whatever. Just going to go in and just go around the outside, sorry, the inside there of the wall. Go around a little bit, wipe this off, and then I'll just run the piston up and down. And that's feeling better already. Yeah, everything is much, much better. You just don't want to put too much force on this and all of a sudden you crack apart. Okay, so that piston feels really nice now. And I'm going to put the nib unit back in. And then I'm just going to draw up some water. Just see how well it's pulling up water. I might as well weigh it too just to see what the ink capacity is. And then just rinse it out really quick. And then I'll check out the nib to see how that's looking or if we need to do a little bit of tuning. On the eBay listing, the pen was listed as near mint, and I can agree with that. So we got 13.8 overall. Let me just hit tear. Put the pen there. So 9 grams. And then I'm going to fill it up and see how much ink capacity we get. Yeah, I can see a little ink coming out of there. So we're going to give this a little bit of a flush. Might get a little pen flush afterwards just to really clean it out. Yeah, they said they cleaned it out best they could. And who knows what their definition of clean is versus yours, right? But that's okay. There's always a risk with things, but after the biggest thing, like I said at the start, is just have some patience. If you learn to have patience, the right pen will appear. And you're going to lose out on some that you wish you could have got or whatever that you thought was a good price. But I think if you take your time, you're going to end up with a better pen. So I looked around, found this seller, favorited a bunch of his listings that were ending sort of soon. A lot of times ones I wasn't even interested in, just curious to see what the prices were going for, reading up, seeing other reviews, and just everything sounded really good about the seller, and they seemed to have a lot of the types of pens I was looking for. So I watched for a while, for several months. Missed out on a few, but then I ended up getting this one, and I thought it was a reasonable price. I paid $195 US for the pen. It was flushing out clean, so now it's ready. The scale was drifting, I noticed that, but we were at 9 grams, so now we're at 10.6. So it's got a 1.6 milliliter ink capacity. This is water filled in it right now. Returning the last little bit of water, it's all coming out nice and clean. And just like when you're changing oil, you take a look at it, same thing. There's no crazy bits coming out of here or glitter or anything, just checking what the water looks like so it's clear. Everything's looking good. You are tempted to ink up the pen right now, but I really want to look at the nib first. It's much easier to give it a little tweak if I need to. I just had a look up close with the loop. It's pretty good. There's one little slight adjustment I'll probably do. I'm going to put the macro on here and see if I can show you what I see. Overall, the nib is really good. I'll probably floss this really quick. I'll show that as well. Alignment and things seem pretty good. Everything seems fairly even. That looks like it's longer, but that's just some weird lighting going on. Everything's fine there. But where I noticed it off just a hair is if I look sort of head on with the nib. Now again, I don't think we have enough on the camera here, even with the macro to show it. But this tine over here has a little bit of what's called canyoning. So this particular tine needs a slight adjustment to go that way. So that way the two sides of the slit are perfectly parallel to each other. So it's a hair wider at the top than it is at the bottom. So I'm going to go like this with the nib. You can see it's moving just a hair, just a little bit. Might do that, hold it for a moment, and then I'll double check it. I'll be doing this off camera with the loop, but this is all I'm going to be doing is what you're seeing right there, just to get that slit perfectly parallel. They might get out of alignment, and so then I'll just go along and do something like this and just do a fine tune there, check it again. But that's all I'm going to be doing. This might take me, I don't know, 60 seconds. So I'm back. Everything looks really good now. It just needed a little fine tune. I could tell that the tine gap is really good. Sometimes when you go to adjust the tines, you pull one up, push one down a little bit, they actually kind of cross and interfere with each other. You need to have just that little spacing in between. So the spacing on here is really good. I'm going to check it with a little brass shim here. Go along and do this here. Let me do this off camera. Okay, now I got it. It's tough to do this stuff and record and try to make sure you're seeing it at the same time. But the tine gap feels really, really good. And then I'm just going to check underneath here as well, between the nib and the feed. That might, I'll see how it goes. I just don't know how bouncy the nib is. I might be a little bit bouncy, and that's why. but usually I'd like it to be a little bit more snug right there. I had a closer look and everything actually seems really good. So the pen seems like it's working properly, the piston's working well, everything goes together, the threads are all good, nib is looking good, piston's nice and smooth now. So we did our pre-flight checks. Time to put some ink in it and test out this pen. I'll show this really quick because some folks are into this, but here we have a box from that era. The box on the bottom has the W Germany on there as well, Pelikan AG. Let me know in the comments down there what the AG means. Someone will love to inform us because they know, and they've been dying for someone to ask, so go for it. All the instructions here are all in German. It gives you all the details and information on the different nib types. There was an oblique double broad that that's the one I lost. It was in green, which I already have my M1000 in green, but it was all about that nib, and the price went quite high right at the end, so it is what it is. This one has the broad, but it's got the tortoiseshell, so I thought that was kind of cool. I have no pens like that whatsoever, and it's sort of a cool Pelikan thing they did. Anyways, so that's sort of, just a cool thing. You get to see the instructions. These are all in German. See the different nib lineups and just how things in labeling and all that has changed over the decades. To all my German friends who are watching the video, this fell out of, I think it was that little brochure there or somewhere in the box just now. So that's in there. Please let us know what that means down in the comments. So for inking the pen, I was really thinking about this Diamine Presidential Blue. I've been really digging this, but then all of a sudden I saw this and I go, okay, well, I got to put this in. I got my Pelikan. It's even the older style box, the 4001 Royal Blue. It's even got some German on the box. This is a really great ink. It's nice blue, super easy to deal with as far as cleaning, performs well. I just bought mine on Amazon. There's not much stuff up here in Canada with Amazon, I find, for fountain pens. We get the short end of the stick, but this is a good price, and I think it's even on Prime. I'll have a link down below. Might as well bring you along for the inking. Here we go. Let's pull in our, 1.6 milliliters of ink and see how this pen does. I'm going to go twice. So pull up the piston once, go back down, pull it up again. Actually, I might have to tip the bottle here just to get it. I've used a fair amount of this ink. Okay, there we go. It's a nice blue, and it is a very well behaved ink. And just going to wipe this up, especially on gold nibs. I've been guilty of this. It's better to use a cloth than to use a tissue. You can leave little micro scratches on your pens. For paper, I'm going with my Muji. This is their nice quality paper. It feels so nice. I really like the smoothness of it. I am going to post it. Feels nice in the hand. I love my little Pelikan 140, so I'm excited to try this. So how does it write? It's really nice. This was my first go at it. I hadn't written with it before, so still getting used to it and trying to record it. It's almost impossible, but even doing that was really, really nice. It's nice and smooth. Tons of wetness, as you saw there. Getting a little bit better on this Clairefontaine, using a little bit more. That macro stuff, I was trying to do stuff upside down, so I was actually printing upside down and it was looking terrible, but trying to just show you up close with the macro, with the ink flowing out of the nib onto the page. That's sort of one of the fun things with writing with a fountain pen, is you get to see just the ink flowing out and going onto the page and pooling a little bit. The nib is really nice and smooth. Tried some different styles of printing and letters there a little bit. Fun little thing is I rotated the nib 9 degrees. So now when I'm writing with the page here, I'm like so. So I go in along this way, and it does change the characteristic. It's got a little bit of a thicker downstroke to thinner cross-stroke, as you saw. So you take advantage of that. You can have it write a little bit, not quite, but a little bit like an architect nib. So I thought I'd try that out. That's fun when you can do that with a pen, make it a little bit more diverse. when it has some, just not a standard round ball. You can write up and down like so, go 90 degrees, change it. Sometimes you rotate it. If it's an oblique, changes the letter characteristic. So that makes things fun. For me, when I go vintage, I want to have something a little extra special with the nib, something a little bit different. And if you go on some regalia paper here, it just gets really thick and juicy and wet. But yeah, it writes really, really nice. I'm looking forward to using this pen a whole bunch more. My top places I go to buy older pens, I wouldn't call this one vintage. I don't think this classifies to be old enough yet. But number one is eBay. I always check there the most. Pen Swap, that is on Reddit. So that's a subreddit that's on there. Great place for people to swap around their pens and sell them or list that they want to buy. Virtual Pen Show, that's on Instagram. Same type of thing. People list their pens through there to showcase stuff they're trying to sell. You can get new and old on all these places as well. And then, of course, meetups. If you have the luxury of going to pen shows, I still have not been to one yet. There's people selling vintage pens. Also, even within pen clubs, the Vancouver Pen Club, there are some folks that are big time into vintage. They're always on the hunt. They're restoring. They're selling. They're looking to acquire. Great stuff as well. And sometimes Facebook Marketplace, I've had luck there as well. But my number one tip, like I said before, is just take your time, think a little bit, and think about what you want. Do you just want it because you want to get something, or is there something particular that you want to try that's something new or something different with fountain pens? So for me, I wanted to get a tortoiseshell or the oblique broad. The dream pen would have been this with an oblique double broad. But also that other green one that got away with the oblique double broad, that's on my mind. I wonder how that writes. So who knows? If another one should cross my path, I might have to pick that up another time. But overall, I'm very, very happy. Glad I waited, found a really good condition pen. And this thing, it's fantastic. We'll leave it there. One thing you might want to do if you haven't is hit the subscribe button. Someone told me after subscribing to my channel, Bay State Blue no longer stain their pens. We'll catch you next time.